What's up, Anchor Peeps? Anchor Pete is here, and I'm with my beautiful wife, Shari T. As a holiday treat, Shari T and I are going to review a newly released movie, The Nest, which is right now on Amazon Prime if you want to go and rent it. So we're going to talk about the behind the scenes of the movie for a little bit, the basic plot for about 5 minutes, and then we are going to jump into spoilers. When it's spoiler time, I will give you the warning. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can go ahead and stop watching it. Go watch The Nest and then come back to us. All right, so Shari, you ready to talk about this?
I am. Let's do it.
Okay, so the reason why Shari was interested in The Nest is because it was directed by Sean Durkin, okay? Now, you might not recognize Sean Durkin's name. He's only made one other feature film besides The Nest. He made Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. And yes,
way to get that title out without any issues.
Oh, I had to look at my notebook because I knew I would just totally mess up that title.
Now, every time I try to say the name of that movie, I just say Martha, Marcy, whatever, you know?
Yeah. And the thing about that movie, Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, is that not only people know about it, and when I talk to my other guys, like on the Laster cast, or other people that are into movies like we are, they don't even know about it. We've just been talking about cult movies a couple of episodes ago on the Laster cast. We talked about 1BR, and I was saying how Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene is this great cult movie. And it's with Elizabeth Olsen, and it shows her trying to get over being in a cult and like kind of dealing with the brainwashing of being in a cult. And
yeah, I believe it's her first movie too.
Her first feature, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that Sean Durkin did a great job with that. And when you told me that he did The Nest, I was like super excited. And not only that, but it's got a pretty good set of leads, right?
Yeah, this movie is about a married couple, and the married couple is played by Jude Law, who is always good, always a little evil, always kind of hot. And then Carrie Coon, who you might not know, we are familiar with her because we're Fargo freaks, and she is the lead cop in the season 3 of Fargo, and she also is one of the leads in HBO's version of The Leftovers.
Yeah. Yeah, so
you'll know her if you've seen either one of those. If not, this will be your first time, and you'll still enjoy her because she's really good in this.
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of hers too. She, like I said, is in Fargo. And then for those of you guys that like all the comic book stuff, she's actually in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. She's one of Thanos' servants. I can't believe I'm forgetting which one it is, but she's all like CGI'd out. But one thing that's great about her, I feel like her voice is very distinct. Right?
Yeah.
Her voice is not very feminine, but she's this beautiful woman, but she's got this voice that's kind of deep. And I just love that contrast. I think it makes her pretty interesting to watch. Mm-hmm. So I got to say that because you said Jude Law is hot, so it's all good.
Okay. No, it's okay. I agree. I think Carrie Coon's something interesting as well.
Yeah. So so they play Rory O'Hara is Jude Law, right? Jude Law is Rory O'Hara. And then Carrie Coon plays Allison. Okay, that's his wife. And the movie takes place in the 1980s. And at first, they live in New York, this couple, with their 2 children. There is Ben, who is like a maybe elementary school, going into middle school age kid. And then there's Sam, who's a teenage daughter. She is Allison's biological daughter and Jude Law's stepdaughter. And then Ben is the child that they both have biologically, right? So Allison was obviously married before and had a kid, and now she's with Jude Law. So when we meet him, he is very much interested in returning to London to conduct business over there because he feels like he doesn't have opportunity in the United States. Jude Law wants the family to move back to London, and so they do. And he's able to convince his wife, who's hesitant at first, and they go there. And when they are there, they have this gigantic house that they are renting. And something's not right. You're like, how can they afford this gigantic house? He goes to join a firm, which is like involved in the stock exchange. And the whole movie, or at least the first 60% of the movie, you're sitting there thinking like, okay, something's a little off here. And you're trying to figure out what is going on.
And that's credit, I think, to the writer-director. What's his name? Sean Durkin?
Sean Durkin.
Yeah, he gives you this sense of dread right from the start when Jude Law, in the very beginning, and this, I want to say this is a slow moving movie at first. It's a very much sit back and observe, watch what's happening, and then we'll reveal a lot of things to you in the second half of the movie type. It's like that. But they start out with the way it's filmed gives you like a sense of dread and nervousness, like you know something's coming.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, Shari, because when I was watching the movie last night, I was thinking that a lot of the shots are from a distance. You're not usually up close in people's faces throughout the whole movie, right? So there's always that kind of voyeur feeling, which you'll see in thrillers and horror movies a lot. Also, I noticed that with Carrie Coon, that from a you almost don't see her face most of the movie. You see Jude Law's face a lot, but a lot of times it's like a side profile, or she's at a distance, or she's not looking at the camera, right? And so I thought that was an interesting choice too, since she's one of the leads. Then besides that, on the last cast, we have a video on Dr. Sleep, and we were talking about how, like The Shining, it uses a lot of these like fade in and fade out shots, which is like an older kind of technique, right? And it's all throughout The Shining, it's all throughout Dr. Sleep. And it was weird watching this movie because I'm like, wait a minute, they're using it in this movie too, which is like something they don't use in modern movies now. They don't like slowly fade from one scene to the next. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I appreciate the fade out because and I think it was appropriate for this movie. There's not fast editing really in this movie or fast cuts or anything. Everything's very thoughtful. And I think the filmmakers, everything they're showing you is for a reason, and the way they're showing it to you is for a reason. Considering this is only his second movie, I think he's pretty skilled. Like he knows what he's doing, and he's trying to evoke a mood and a feeling, and it's very successful.
Yeah. Well, I did a little research on Sean Durkin, and we can talk about this during the non-spoiler part, which is that, tell me if this sounds a little familiar. He was born in Canada, but moved to England, where he was raised in North London in Surrey, right? And then his family moved to Manhattan when he was 12. So Surrey, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, Surrey is actually where the movie takes place. That's like where this big house is located. You know?
Yeah, so maybe it's a little bit of the Jude Law character is a little bit based on him.
Yeah. And what I felt like, especially in the beginning, there's a lot of like talk about the American economy, the British mindset, and there seemed to be like a little bit of a commentary on the way America was in the 80s, the way America is financially, the way that Britain is financially. And I felt like that was coming from a place of like knowledge or experience. Like he knew what he was talking about. Like they were trying to make a commentary on it. Do you want to tell us, like, just in general, how'd you feel about this movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What would you rate it?
I liked it, but I didn't love it. I saw the trailer first, and for those of you who are going to watch this based on the trailer, which is one of the things that got me excited about it, aside from the fact that I was interested. I liked his first movie so much, I wanted to see the second thing that he had done, and it took him almost 10 years to make it. But the trailer got me excited, and I want to say the trailer makes this look very much like an exciting thriller. And I wouldn't say that's what this is. This is it's almost like domestic drama, but it does have a feeling of something bad's going to happen or something major is going to happen. And I won't go into spoilers, but it's not exactly that kind of movie after all. To me, this is almost more like a marital problems movie.
Yes.
You know, like after I watched this, I almost wanted to like make a list of my favorite, you know, marital couple fighting scenes or something like that, because this has a couple of great ones. So if you like that kind of thing, this is a good movie for you. It's also extremely well acted by the two leads. There's a lot of like bit people coming in and out of scenes, but there's very few other people in this movie. I couldn't even say the kids are in it a little, but like you said, they barely show their faces. So it's very much about this couple and how they interact and how they deal with these changes in their life, the change of moving from America to London, and his new job and her lack of job once she moves. And I think it's relatable for a lot of married couples because we all kind of have issues like this come up. Of course, we'll go into spoilers about Jude Law's character and how he acts, but yeah. So liked it, but didn't love it. I felt a little misled by the trailer. If it wasn't for the trailer, I'd probably appreciate this a little bit more. How about you?
So, okay, so when we determine like what to show on this channel, I try to keep it within a certain parameter, right? And so when you said thriller, I was like, okay, yeah, this would be good. This would be a thriller. Oh, and it's directed by this guy that did Martha Marcy, whatever, right? So I was
Which
like, okay,
is also kind of a toned down thriller.
yes. So yeah, right. You said toned down thriller, right? And then we kind of had this debate on, well, what makes a thriller, right? And I think it's that sense of not knowing what's going to happen. And I think pretty early on in this movie, you understand like what is going to cause the doom. It's not like, oh, who's behind this? You know who's behind the doom that is coming. It's just kind of watching it in slow motion. And I think that it's more of a drama than a thriller, but I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it because, like you said, there's stuff in it that you can relate to being in a couple and having children. But besides that, just the idea of like being an adult and kind of how you present yourself in your career and how you present yourself financially, that is a huge part of this movie, is like the appearances that we put on for others and what we try to show others and what the reality is. And I think this movie does a really great job of like showing the reality and then showing like what people might be pretending reality is. And so I just had two more things I wanted to say about Sean Durkin too before we got into spoilers. He had this one great quote that I read. It said, "When I make a film, I think about things that scare me. My exploration of those things is to try and wrap my head around them and confront them." So I think that with Martha Marcy, there's that feeling of like losing your identity in a cult or being like persuaded by others. In this movie, I think it's this fear of not knowing why you do certain things or why it's so important for people to think a certain thing about you. And so I personally think that like Jude Law and Carrie Coon might end up being nominated for Academy Awards for their portrayals in here. And I think that like this is a quality film. It might not be a thriller as much as they like to say it is, but I think that it's a very good drama.
It reminded us of The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Oh, okay.
Right, because it kind of has like a more like serious, it has a vibe like that.
Okay, so The Killing of a Sacred Deer, if you haven't seen that, you should also see that as well. But Killing of a Sacred Deer, what's interesting about that movie is it seems like a character might have cursed this family. And the two children in the family all of a sudden become sick out of nowhere. And you don't know, is someone poisoning them? What's going on? And that one is much more of a thriller because you don't know why the kids are sick. But one of the things that connects that movie to this movie is the idea that the father is leading like a double life, or he's keeping a secret, and his secret is what's poisoning the family. And so there is one aspect of this movie
and it's very much about the husband and wife's relationship, which is why it reminded me of this movie.
So let's get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen this movie, you can stop it right here. Come back after you watch it, okay?
And like and subscribe.
So the main idea behind this movie is that Jude Law is lying constantly. He's lying to his wife. He's lying to the people that he works with. And he is presenting himself as this super successful businessman, when in reality, he is just digging himself deeper and deeper into debt. And he jumps from one scheme to another. And unfortunately, he can't catch a break. He keeps trying to feel like he's like, oh, I'll save myself with this scheme. Oh, I'll save myself with this scheme. And every time he's using more and more money, and every time he's not getting money back. So he essentially bankrupts his family by the end of the movie. And throughout the course of the movie, his secrets are revealed to his wife, Allison. So
but there's not that many deep dark secrets. It's like the secret is just that he's been telling his wife, it's okay, we're going to be okay. Hey, and what she does for a living is she trains horses and gives horseback riding lessons. It's apparently her passion. He tells her, if I can uproot our family, and they mention it's the fourth move in 10 years, which of course is hard on children and on her. He says, if you let us do this, he kind of talks her into it in his charming way. I will get you your own stables. You'll have your own horse. You'll get to be your own boss. And this is one of the ways he convinces her to leave the life they've built where they're happy and move to this estate in London.
Yeah.
But like I guess the reason I brought this up is because it's not that he's lying, got so many secrets. It's that he's lying about how much money they have, and she just kind of eventually figures it out based on a series of things, that actions and events that unfold, and she gets more and more upset with him, and their lives crumble more and more. And that's essentially what the movie is how low are they going to go? How bad is it going to get? And that's almost the thriller part. You're like waiting to see what's going to happen, like to this family as they get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, yeah. And so like you're tuned into his lying pretty early on too, because they go to a party once they're established in London, and his new boss there is an old friend of his, and the new boss talks about how Jude Law called him up to ask if he could come work with him, right? That he was tired of America. And we know that he told his wife that the new boss had called him. So you can see that he's already lying to his wife there. And then when he's talking to other people at the party, he's saying that they had a penthouse in Manhattan, which they did not. They lived like somewhere in the suburbs. And there's all these little lies that he tells people. And so
they rent their new estate, which is like way too expensive for them. He pays a full year in advance for the rent, but he tells everyone they own it.
Right.
A big difference.
Yeah, they say that he says they're going to get an apartment in London too. You know, so there's a lot of
go apartment hunting. Yeah, and that's the moments where she calls, says, let's cut the shit. We can't afford this.
Yeah. Right off the bat, one of my favorite scenes is when Allison, the wife, calls out Rory, right? And so they go to a restaurant, and she admits that she knows that he hasn't been paying these workers that are working on her stables, right? And he's like, I have money. Money's coming. Money's coming. And she's like, okay, money's coming. Then you pay for this dinner. And she just orders all this like super expensive stuff. She's like, we're going to start off with 12 oysters, and we're going to have this wine. We're going to have this wine. And Jude Law, you're just watching him kind of like, kind of die inside. And he's like, sure, yeah, get those things, right? And then the best part, I think I even heard you kind of chuckle or snort or something, was when the waiter goes to offer some wine for Jude Law to taste to see if it's good. He goes to pour it in a glass, and Jude Law's like, don't show her that. She knows fuck about the wine or something. And then the wife just like takes the bottle of wine and like swigs it, and she's like, oh, it's great. Let's have some of that. And that was probably my favorite part in the whole movie.
It was a really great scene, a really good like couple fight, we were talking about, and she's so good in that part. That might be my favorite part with her too.
Another scene is like it's interesting because like a lot of the favorite scenes for me are almost like scenes from like the War of the Roses, where it's like the couples are like fighting each other in public, and other people are just not really knowing what's going on, but they're like really, hitting each other verbally or mentally, right? So towards the end of the movie, Jude Law goes to seal a special deal with this company that's from another country. And he takes his business partner, and he takes his wife. And he's the only one that's got his wife with him for some reason too, right? So they're sitting at this table, and Jude Law's just spitting out bullshit. He's like, oh, we go to this theater, and Anthony Hopkins is there, and all this kind of stuff. And his wife just calls him out. She's like, you've never gone to the theater before. Like, you've never stepped. She's basically just saying how he is just lying to them, And then she eventually just gets up and leaves. And she goes to the coat check girl, and she has this like beautiful mink coat that Jude Law gave her, and she just gives the coat to the coat check girl, and then just leaves him in the restaurant. I just love that. That was like one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, she has a few moments like that because she has been dealing with his bullshit the whole movie, and it seems like there's maybe a history there of his bullshit because when she makes money, because she actually goes out and earns money by doing a legit job, which is like hard manual labor. She works on a farm baling hay to make money. She'll train horses to make money. So she actually has like a hidden box where she has to hide money so that she has some money when the time comes, because he keeps running out for their family. So it seems like there's a history there, and she knows this about him. And again, this reminds me so much of like some couples. I mean, I've known couples where one of them's a spender and the other one's always having to be on top of their spouse about, we can't afford this, you've got to stop it. So I thought that was very real and realistic. I kept waiting for him to like maybe rob her box of money, but that doesn't happen. And I'm kind of glad, because that was maybe too predictable.
Yeah.
And also I think she was too smart maybe to let that happen. Like when he does ask her for money, she makes him leave the room so she can go to her hiding spot without him knowing. I think she worries if he was aware that he probably would rob her.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think about being married to someone who you can't trust. You know, they lie to everybody else, and you eventually realize they're lying to you as well, of course. Yeah, and there's, oh, you know what my favorite scene was too? Well, I like the scenes you mentioned, but my other favorite scene is, it's towards the end. There's this climatic night where they go out and she calls him out, like you mentioned, at the dinner in front of his colleagues and embarrasses him.
Right.
And this is the final night that's kind of the end of the movie takes place. At home are the two kids who've been falling apart, and the daughter decides to throw a party while they're gone, and they do some speed, you know, and she's in high school, so it's kind of, you know, it's going to be like a really rough party probably at their house in their beautiful estate. Anyway, Jude Law eventually has to get home on his own because his wife leaves him at the restaurant, and then he has this really good conversation with the cab driver.
Yeah.
Who, you know, the cab driver isn't ever in the movie at any other part. He just has this important conversation. It's really well written, well acted by Jude Law. And the cab driver just tells him off. He's like, Jude Law opens up to the cab driver about how he's having such a bad night, and he used to have all this money, and he's mad he's not getting all the money he wants and needs. The cab driver's like, but you have 2 kids and a wife. You mentioned it. That's what really matters. You know, he kind of like says the things that Jude Law needs to hear.
Yeah.
I don't know that it gets through to him, but it's what I'm thinking the whole movie, because of course I'm on the wife's side. I feel very much the way she does. I was actually really frustrated. She just didn't fucking leave him.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. So that right there. First off, the movie has a very ambiguous ending. It ends after Jude Law is finished with that cab ride, right? And the thing is, Shari, that was actually going to be my third scene that I was going to say was my favorite scene in the movie too. The cab ride scene. Yes. Yeah.
Oh yes, it's great.
So the cab driver actually drops Jude Law off like in the middle of nowhere because he's like, hey, listen, you tell me that you lie to people all the time, and you've also told me that your money is at your house. So I feel like you're not going to give me money at your house. I'm dropping you off right here. And Jude Law walks home, and there's this sort of tension building because his wife has left that little dinner, and she's drinking, and she goes to a club and she's dancing around, and then she drives home kind of drunk, and you're thinking, oh, maybe she's going to hit him with the car, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
And so the movie has this ambiguous ending where the house is just completely demolished because there was this huge party there the night before, and the kids have made breakfast. The daughter and the son have made breakfast. The mom is there smoking a cigarette at the table. Jude Law comes in and tries to pitch one last like Hail Mary of a plan. It's like, I'm going to start my own law firm and we're going to make money that way. And the mom just tells him to stop. And the reason why I say it's ambiguous is because you don't know if after they all sit together at this breakfast table, she's going to leave him or if they're going to stay together. The movie just ends with Jude Law coming and sitting at the table and them all just sitting silently eating breakfast together. So yeah. If you're an optimist, maybe you think that like they stay together and that, you know, he changes his ways and the wife is just always on top of him and just knowing that he's not going to lie anymore. Or if you're a pessimist, maybe they split up and Jude Law like goes and kills himself eventually, or he tricks somebody else, right? So,
or if you're like me, you're an optimist and think she leaves him.
Yeah.
I think that would be the best ending. That's what he deserves. You know, he really pissed me off for a villain kind of who really doesn't do that much wrong. His crimes are very blue or white collar, and I don't think there's even any actual crime, but it's like crimes of the heart against his family, you know. We didn't talk about the kids and how they kind of suffer with this move. The boy goes to, you know, Jude Law's really proud. He got him into this expensive private school and he's very lucky to go there. And but the boy's just getting bullied there. The boy starts wetting the bed. And I think he's probably about 12, too old for that. He's afraid of the house. You know, They show him kind of running when he has to go to his room. The parents like just stop parenting. The beginning of the movie, which seems slow, is really actually pretty smart because it sets up their family life. It has all these scenes of Jude Law playing soccer with his son, the daughter in gymnastics, the mom teaching her classes, making money. And then it shows them eating dinner together happily, right? and once they move to London, you don't see any of those things anymore. The kids are clearly suffering. Like I said, the boy has all these problems. The daughter just, the mom's late to pick her up, so she takes, mysterious ways of getting home from school. You don't even know how she gets home. And this one day she has just strangers, other kids in the house that she hardly knows. Anyway, their family's falling apart, and it just makes you really mad at Jude Law for doing that to them, because he doesn't really seem to give a shit. He's really obsessed and self-centered with himself and his career. And I think, in this cab ride, he eventually admits to the cab driver he doesn't know what it is he wants, or why he can't be happy with just family life and what they had before in New York, why he needs more.
Yeah.
But I think it's ego. I mean, I think this is a person who's operating like at the mercy of his ego, anything to feed his ego. He wants to feel great. I've known people like this. That's why I feel like I recognize it. But just really disliked his character.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is kind of like The Shining. And I'm just saying this too, because like I just watched Dr. Sleep, and we had this big discussion about Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, you've got Stephen King on the brain.
Oh yeah. And so I just to kind of tie things all together, when they talked to Sean Durkin about his favorite movies, he gave a list of his top 10 favorite movies. And this sounds kind of like this list would be for you, Shari. I think you'd get along with this guy. He likes Three Women, The Birds, The Conformist, The Goonies, Jaws, right? Which I know is a big one for you. The Panic.
So The Birds. The Birds is one of my favorites. Awesome.
Yeah. The Panic in Needle Park, Persona, The Piano Teacher, Rosemary's Baby, and The Shining. So if you look at Rosemary's Baby and The Shining, those are both examples of like the father or the spouse, the husband, just kind of getting consumed with what's happening in their lives and leaving the spouse to the wayside, and bad things befall them, right? That happens in both The Shining and Rosemary's Baby. And so I definitely got a Shining vibe, especially because they're in this gigantic house that is just in the middle of nowhere. So I really felt The Shining a lot in this movie.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I didn't think of it at all, but I definitely see the similarities you're pointing out.
Yeah. But with the person that's the writer and the director, when the movie is their vision, it's really interesting what they choose to show, right? Because especially this movie has many, many, many scenes where there's no dialogue whatsoever, and it's just someone doing something. It's Jude Law looking off into space while he's on a train, or it's her working with their horse, or her like there's one scene that I remember like stood out to me where she's just moving a couch in their house, right? And that's just the scene. It's just her straightening up a couch. And with filmmakers, with movies like this, where it's like movies that you have to think, or movies where you know that there's something deeper going on, it's like there's symbolism in this scene. The scene is telling you something, whereas in another movie, she would like be fighting, or she'd be confiding in her friend saying like, he's off at work all day and I have to move all this stuff in the house. But no, that's not the way this movie is. It's like, you have to gather this is what's happening. And I think that Sean Durkin did a great job with this, where it's all these little collections of scenes, and you're just putting the pieces together yourself, and no one is saying what's happening. You're just coming to your own conclusions. Do you agree?
Yes, that's what I mentioned at the beginning. Like, you're an observer here, and your job is pretty much as the watcher, like to sit back and watch what unfolds between these couples, pay attention, get a feel for their lives. And I'm not saying it's the most interesting thing ever. It is domestic drama, but it really sets the mood, the tone. You have a very good feel for these characters just based on those little scenes, like you said.
Yeah. So I recommend it. If guys, like, if you are fans of like indie movies that you have to kind of think through, like your hand is not being held for you, you just have to kind of put the pieces together, and there's more going on below the surface than what people are showing you, then I recommend this movie. And so what about you?
Yeah, and if you like marital couple fighting, you'll love it.
Yeah, especially in this COVID. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was a lot of hubbub about, what was it, The Marriage Story?
Yeah.
The one with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, their fight scene.
Yeah.
There's a fight scene here. I think that, it rivals that, I think.
Yes.
Where he gets in her face. and the truth comes out about why he's like, I deserve this, you know?
If you guys haven't already had enough, marital turmoil during COVID time, then you can always watch a movie and watch some other couple happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's pretty much it for this review for The Nest. It looks like Shari and I recommended a lot. Coming up in December, we're going to have a couple of Christmas-themed movies. We actually have a Christmas horror movie that we're going to review pretty early on, coming up this week. And I think we're going to actually talk about the movie Fargo at one point as well, because even though it's not a Christmas movie, it's nice and cold and a lot of snow. And, we are tremendous fans of the show Fargo, as you can tell from this video. So I think we're going to go back to our roots and review the movie as well. So thanks for watching. And also just, the Lasser Cast, we just wrapped up our Stephen King month. So if you are as big a Stephen King fan as I am, or Shari is, then also make sure to go over to our other channel, The Lasser Cast, where we just wrapped up Stephen King month. All right. So thanks so much, and we will see you guys real soon.
Bye.